Hello, everyone. It's Casey Cole Corbin, and it is time for the first Friday, which is our free substance abuse recovery classes online that we do the first part of the month. And this is our first time trying it at 9 p.m. So I hope that works out better for some people. If you're coming on live, please say hello in the chat. And if you are coming in, if you're watching it on replay, please say hello too. That's always encouraging. If you have any kind of questions, I will be sure to go through the comment thread later. I may be able to catch some during the live, but I'll definitely answer your any questions that you have in the comment thread. So let's begin. All right, so this is the third one out of, we started 3 months ago on the first Friday. And let's review what we learned there. The first one, we talked about how habit patterns can be good and how habit patterns can be bad. And we talked about subconscious sabotage and how those all kind of come into play. And we talked about how addiction to either substances or addictive behaviors that can include a lot of things. Nowadays, we hear about people being addicted to gaming and certainly pornography and also gambling, etc. And you could even throw in other things like shopping in there too. So that begins with a 4-step process called use, and then misuse, abuse, and then dependency. And then an important concept for us to all be on the same page about is the beast brain. And here's an illustration for that. Your top brain up here, this is who you really are, and a teeny tiny part of the base of your spinal column here is your it brain, or the beast brain, and that's what we do not want to be making decisions for us. Also wanted to warn you that if you're in recovery, and you should not be surprised by cravings that you will have. That doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. You will have cravings from time to time for the rest of your life, and so that's something to be accepted. So you need to engage your SAS team. And the SAS stands for Structure, Accountability, and Support Team, provided by other people. These are external. Hey, Beth, thanks for joining us. All right, the lizard brain, that's exactly right. And your homework is the person in recovery is to be working on their relapse prevention plan, and that's something that I've created over the since about 2005, so I guess about 15, 16 years ago, and been modifying it a lot since then. And it has about 30 different exercises to be able to help you prepare and be able to stay in the game of recovery. And then family members, you have a cohort to that, which is called the Family Support Plan to begin working on. In session 2, we focused on, boy, I really need a map. What does the recovery look like? And we mapped it out for you in several different stages. There's the 4-step process of how you or your loved one became an addict and how to avoid it. If you've never walked down that road, that would be great. This is going to be great. An ounce of prevention, a pound of cure. The 4 stages of recovery, and so you know exactly what to expect, and one that you absolutely have to prepare for. And that was called the wall stage, and we're going to talk about that again in this session. And then there's a predictable 4-step process for relapse that you and your SAS team, your family, your loved ones need to know exactly what to look out for. Now, I've worked with over 3,000 addicts in the last 20 years, and every one of them that has relapsed, which is a substantial number, has gone through these 4 steps of relapse. So if that's interesting to you, you want to look up the second video that was made about a month ago. And the 5 stages of the way that human beings change, so you can just kind of see where you are in the change process. And I'm going to expand this to not just say to the addict, but also to the codependent, because today we're going to talk about codependency and enabling and enmeshment a lot. And you are also on these 5 stages of change, which are pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. And again, we have a whole nother video on detailing those things. The homework for that one was for the person in recovery to ask your SAS team to be on your SAS team and support you and help you and hold you accountable. And then the family members were to consider agreeing to being on their SAS team. So this session, we're going to talk about relapse prevention in this Success Essentials series. And so what I promised you in the advertisement before this is that we are going to talk about how to truly utilize your willpower. And it's a funny thing, because what people usually mean when they say by willpower is not at all what's going to work. And then how setting up boundary lines really saves everybody. And then the tricky, subtle process of becoming codependent enabler that is enmeshed with your addict. And we're going to focus on the wall stage. And so here's a graphic for you. Just to remind you, it starts off with withdrawal, then the honeymoon stage, then the wall stage, and then getting back to readjustment. And so the wall stage is the major pitfall that many people, especially early and middle recovery, still have this to look forward to. So you need to prepare for that. 20 years ago, I created a presentation that I called "There is no such thing as willpower." My point is that our self-will is internal, and the very nature of recovery and addiction is that the motivation has to come from an external source, or we will not be successful. Why? Because when you go offline and the beast brain, comes online, your internal motivation then changes. Your will is the opposite of that of your beast brain's will. And so your beast brain will always head towards use and of addictive substances or behaviors. And you want to move away from it, and it wants to move towards addiction, and that will never change. And so you need to accept and plan for it. It's a situation where we're in not if, but when that you will be tempted and have some close calls. Remember, it's not if your beast brain gets back in charge, it's when. And so there will be times that you just will be unsuccessful in stopping that process. So no human is perfect, and you should not expect to handle every trigger that comes your way perfectly. There are times that you will go from trigger to thought to craving and then be headed towards use, and your willpower alone will not be able to stop this from happening. Now, I kind of gave up on the whole presentation that I was to try to convince people that there's no such thing as willpower. So, because you got these big-headed people that pride themselves in their willpower and that they are stubborn about it. And so trying to convince them that there was no such thing as willpower, I got absolutely nowhere. So I'm going to be flexible on this. I now teach that since your soul has three parts, mind, will, and emotions, is that your mind and emotion will fuel the power of your will. Your will is your decider, which are the decisions that you make, such as to relapse or not. And another way of looking at this is that your mind has a will and your emotions has a will, and sometimes that they're in conflict. Now, we all can think about this and agree with this. All it's part about being a human is that sometimes you feel like doing this and you think better of it and you think like you should go this direction. And so we're torn, on the inside. That's completely normal. And so the real power is in our mind and our emotion, and we need to get these two going in the same direction. I like to think about our many different parts that can be sometimes in crosshairs with each other, that can be going opposing directions, and what we want to do is honor that we have many different parts to ourselves, but have them congruent, going in the same direction, kind of like two lines on a highway, like they're getting somewhere. So having many parts is not the problem, it's having them working against each other or sabotaging your efforts is the problem there. All right, more on that another time. All right. We're still talking about just your mind and your emotions. We're not talking about the beast brains. All right. Remember, when it gets in control, it has a whole nother set of will and it has access to some very strong neurochemicals that fuels its will. Remember that the beast brain is like the Incredible Hulk to you being David Banner, or Mr. Hyde to your Dr. Jekyll. While I no longer say that there's no such thing as willpower, I teach that your mind has a will and it is powerful, and your emotion has a will and it's very powerful. And so the real battle is in the arena of your thoughts and your corresponding feelings. Pay attention to the way that you think, and that will affect the way that you feel. Allowing certain thoughts has a response to a certain feeling and eventually results in certain behaviors. So let's pause here and let's just do an affirmation. Let's do an acceptance affirmation. If you're able to really just focus, and this is an internal exercise, it's not just listening to me, but it's in some ways repeating it inside yourself and to yourself. So here's how I'd like for this to go, all right? So I, and you fill in your name, am, and then you choose if you're dependent or codependent. If you're listening to me, you're probably one of those right now. And I accept that I have to live my life differently than other people. It's good to know that what my pitfalls are, as everyone has something, nobody's perfect. I'm blessed to know mine, and I am open to learning what to look out for. So let's repeat that again, okay? I am and I accept that I have to live my life differently than other people. It's good to know what my pitfalls are, as everyone has something and nobody's perfect. I'm blessed to know mine, and I'm open to learning what to look out for. Good. Let's keep it real simple. Recovery is about keeping you on and it off. And so you want your human brain up here to be awake and it to be asleep. Next section I want to talk about is how to become codependent. All right, I hope nobody's buying a book by that title. Everyone that stays around an addict while they are in their addiction is guilty of being codependent. Frankly, a healthy person just wouldn't have put up with all that craziness. And I'm truly sorry if that offends you. But if you are offended, maybe even becoming defensive right now, creating arguments in your mind against what I'm saying, then you really, really, really need to listen to me and accept this. The good news is that just as there is steps for an addict to gain freedom from their recovery, there is also a process for a codependent to become healed up and freed too. Just as the person who is a dependent on substances or addictive behaviors, that they have resources available to them, the codependent also has resources. So like, let's say you're an alcoholic and you're going to AA or Alcoholics Anonymous, or maybe a drug addict and you're going to Narcotics Anonymous, and they have meetings and steps and sponsors. There's something called Al-Anon that you may not have heard about, and that is for the loved ones around an addict. And they also have meetings and steps, and they have sponsors that guide them through the process. And I've got the website here. Al-Anon is kind of spelled weird, so you might want to notice that. And you can look up area groups that you can find to attend Al-Anon meetings. Now, one thing I want to point out is that I've noticed in working with hundreds of families is there's this strange evolution that usually takes place in codependency. The codependency just doesn't go away on its own. It shifts, similar to or in response to the addict that has an addicted personality. Will drop one addiction and maybe pick up another. The codependent will also do the same. Here are some examples. So maybe an alcoholic will get sober, but they'll start leaning into pain medications and then later become opiate dependent. Or maybe less noticeable or less dramatic is that a drug addict that gets clean, but they start playing video games at an intensity that they start suffering losses in other areas of their life. The codependent that enables addiction to continue during the addiction has to change in response to the addict that no longer uses. The substance or the addiction is no longer in the equation, so of course they have to shift. Their codependency can shift in an unhealthy way to other forms of controlling behaviors, or they can stuff their feelings in fear of setting off the addicted loved one, and they get into the syndrome of kind of walking on eggshells around them. And that can be another expression of an unhealed, enmeshed codependency. Getting sympathy for hitting the wall can be especially abused by the addict for taking advantage of the codependency. Now listen, it's legit that they are irritable, both physical and psychological reasons for that. But no, we don't passively ignore their irritability. We assertively communicate that while we're there for them, they are still responsible for their behaviors and can't just get away with acting any way that they want. So the last thing I want to talk about is setting boundary lines. And this gets us into the fix. Setting boundary lines is the fix for both the codependent and the dependent person. The person in recovery needs boundaries and rules and structures that are enforced by others before they can learn to be able to provide these for themselves. And let me tell you something, they're months and sometimes years away from being able to do that. The structure is helpful for their recovery. Ironically, setting the boundaries is also the fix for the codependent's behavior. And whenever you think about that in the codependent's recovery, when you think about it, for a long time, if they were enabling the addiction to take place, they didn't have boundaries, and their boundaries were trampled on, or the lines that they drew were crossed, and they didn't do anything about that or enough about that. So it's time to do the opposite of that. You've heard me use the word enmeshment when describing the codependent. Enmeshment is like unraveling two sweaters, and so you have a big old pile of yarn, and it's hard to see which one is which. And so this blurring of the line of where one person ends and the other one begins causes a distortion in one's natural boundary lines. The boundary lines are crossed over and over again by the addict. Untangling the enmeshment requires not only drawing a line in the sand, so you say, but also doing whatever you threaten to do when, not if, that they cross it. And I say when, not if, they cross it, because I promise you, you will be tested. Remember, for many years, you might have, threatened to leave them or kick them out or not give them money or whatever it might be. And they kept crossing that line, but you continue to do it anyway. And I'm talking about kind of worst case exaggerated examples of codependency enabling that may or may not apply to you. The definition of insanity is that you must do things differently if you ever have than you ever have before if you want to get different results than you have ever experienced. So these are according to the definition of insanity, we need to act differently if we want different results. You will now have to rethink how you do everything, and that's kind of the homework assignment for this training. But first, let's do a helpful exercise. This is the activation thought exercise that I include in every one of these trainings. And this is just an opportunity, if you're not driving or operating heavy equipment, is to just take a deep breath and give a second for these learnings to sink in. And as you just breathe in, and we're going to belly breathe so that your belly inflates. And then as you exhale, your belly goes flat. And maybe the information was abrasive and it was hard for you to accept, or maybe you've been around long enough to know that you realize that being defensive doesn't help. Either way, you know deep inside that you want to make progress. So now taking in another deep breath, and on your long exhale, if you like, just let your eyes close so that you can really focus on relaxing. And on your next exhale, you could even let your eyes close, and that almost like starts a relaxation feeling across your face. And allowing your shoulders to relax and gently pull away from your ears and unclench your jaw. And let your tongue relax and lay down inside of your mouth. Maybe you didn't even notice that you were clenching or that you were so anxious in your features. And see how easy it is now to manually make your body relax. And you can do even more of that with even more areas of your body. Imagine like a warm wave of relaxation start at the top of your head as it travels down your body, relaxing each part as it travels towards your toes. And on your next long exhale, simply say silently to yourself, change and growth are hard, but I can do hard things. Once again, preferably while you relax on your next exhale, say to yourself, change and growth are hard, but I can do hard things. In fact, you've always been changing. You were once a baby when you learned to walk, and then everything changed. And then once you learned to drive, and then your life changed again. And also you got your first job, and things changed for you again. All of these accomplishments took work and growth, and you did it. You were up to the task like you are now. And you know that you can change and grow. Now that you are relaxed, it's like a part of you can time travel. Part of you can imagine what your life is going to be like a year from now. Looking back a year from now, you can now see how much you have grown and changed and how everything is so much better now. You can celebrate and feel good about the changes that you have made. You can see the new you, and you like the new you. See the new you accomplishing success in each area of your life, like your work, your finances, your relationships improved, emotional stability, mental clarity, spiritually connected, living comfortably in a supportive community of people that love and care for you. Yes, see all that you will be a year from now, and take in how positive and accomplished you feel, and enjoy these accomplished feelings. And you get to keep these positive, accomplished feelings as you bring them back up with you, taking in a big deep breath like you're bringing energy into you, like you've had a really great power nap. Begin to open your eyes, feeling really good and accomplished. All right, well, I'd love to know in the comments how you responded to that exercise. And guess what? We're done. And so we got a homework assignment based on this training. And so for the person in recovery, You need to actively, daily be building trust back, don't you? And so the exercise in the relapse prevention plan that we've mentioned before, called relapse progression and writing out your warning signs, is a great way to hit two birds with one stone. The first one is that sharing the details is kind of like telling on yourself. Confessing the details of how you messed up not only sets the record straight with your loved ones, but also betrays your beast brain, and you want to betray your beast brain. It tells it and you and everyone that you are really serious about recovery. And then the second thing is that your SAS team really needs to know these things so that they can see your warning signs and they can tackle you when you are headed to trouble. And family, look at every aspect of your life and set appropriate boundaries. It's usually easiest to start with finances because they're numbers and they're easier to track. Make decisions about access to your bank account and how much money that they will be allowed to have on them, and then consider your weekly schedule. What about unaccountable time or delays in coming home? And make decisions about like how many of the 168 hours that we all have every week will be dedicated to recovery activities like going to meetings. And you might want to consider how many hours a week that you're going to dedicate to your own recovery from codependency. How many hours for recreation, and what is safe social time? And again, there's much more details in the family support plan that can be provided for you. Just contact me and I'll be happy to do that for you. All right. So, Blake, good to see you. All right. Well, guys, I hope that you, if you're just joining us, that you'll watch in replay mode. If you have any questions, please continue to type them into the comments, and I'll be happy to go in there and answer them for you. This is a free service. We're broadcasting this to the Redeemed Living in Valdosta page, which is a wonderful halfway house residential treatment program in Valdosta, Georgia. And if you need any information about that or any other treatment resources, just consider me a resource to you as well, and contact me. I'll be happy to help you. I'll see you on the first Friday of next month, and that will be the first Friday of the year. And we'll have more in this series as we do session number 4. Hope you all have a really great day. Bye.